Okay, what I've got here is just an era rim cylinder. What we're going to do, we're going to repin this lock. It's only designed for newbies, just so they can see how this works and make themselves a little bit of a practice lock. So there's your fully working 5-pin rim cylinder. What we're going to do, first thing, if you look on the back, this ring here that goes round the back is actually holding this plug into the lock, which is called a circlip. There's a bit of a tail in there. We'll remove that when we take the circlip off because we don't need that in there. So first thing to do is remove that circlip. Now I'm just going to alter the camera position here over to the vise. It's going to be awkward for you to see this because it's on the wrong side really, but I'll do my best for you. So all we're doing is removing that circlip. If you haven't got a proper circlip remover, which I haven't got here with me, this is a quick and easy way to remove it, and that is put your lock in the vise like so. Get yourself a screwdriver and a hammer, rest it onto that circlip, tighten your vise up properly first. Tap that circlip off. Don't have to be all the way off, just so you can see it's well on its way. Scroll back out with this camera now and show you what I've just done there. Move you back to that board. Okay, so what I've done there, if you look at the circlip, you can now, I thought that was the circlip, it was the bit of tail. You can now see how it's raised here, where I've almost taken it off. All you do with your screwdriver is lever that off now. Now I've got the lid of a shoebox here. I always keep, whenever I'm repinning over something like this, if any pins go anywhere you want to make sure they're contained into a smaller area if you can. So I'll put that in there and gently lever that circlip off. Put that to one side. So as you can see now, that's been removed. Now, if you put the key back in the lock, obviously everything's working still, but if I was to turn that sideways and pull it out, can you just see how the front of the lock would quite easily come out if I carried on pulling it? So you've got to be careful there. What you want to do next is get your plug follower, which is a piece of tube like that. You can buy all these all over the place. Keep that in constant contact with the plug in the middle, and then start to push that through the lock. Okay, and then you'll end up with a piece like this, which that is holding all the driver pins in the top of the lock. If you're a newbie, I'll show you this. The driver pins are the pins at the top, and obviously your keyed pins are the ones underneath in the plug barrel. So we've got those contained in there, and then this is the plug inside, and with the correct key, as you can see, that one's a bit low actually, but it is an impression key in this. As you can see, they're virtually all flush. Yeah. So what you're going to do, if you're removing a pin, if you're removing just one pin, decide which pin you're going to remove, and then that'll turn the lock from a 5-pin to a 4-pin. If you want to go all the way down to repinning and picking just one pin at a time, and you just want to leave one pin in the lock, you can empty, for example, 4 of these out of the lock and just leave one in there. But obviously when you take 4 or however many out of this bottom part, you've got to do the same in exactly the same place on the top part. To make it easy, we're just going to remove this one at the front here. So I'm going to empty that out. Yeah, and you can see now there's a hole there where that first one's been removed. So we've got to do the same thing on our rim cylinder. Now this is where you've got to watch for your pins going. What I do, I look in the top part of the lock, gently remove that. Now I can see right at the top there, just inside there, you can see the start. I don't know whether you can on that. You can just see there the start of the pin appearing. So I know it's coming, so I'll put my finger over the end, gently pull the plug a little bit more. It's nearly free now. You heard it drop out then. That's your pin and your spring removed. Then all you would do now is put the lock back together by reversing the process you've just done. Because I want this to stay a 5-pin lock, I'm going to put it back together now. If you're putting all these pins back together and gradually adding them into the lock, you would put that, you see how it's got a slight rounded edge on that pin there? That one goes down to meet the key in the plug. To replace the pins you've removed, again you need to do this over the box. Try to be clever, but I'll probably look stupid in a minute. I turn it upside down to make it a bit easier. I'll get the spring, push the spring in. I'll get my driver pin, which is always the awkward bit for me. And as soon as I'm in that keyway, I push the plug follower against it. As soon as it's in the hole where the driver pin sits, push the plug with the back of your hand against it to hold it in place. And then you can push the rest of the pin down into position. So I've made that a 5-pin lock again now, or I will have once I put this back in. Again, keeping in constant contact with the plug follower, we're just going to reverse the process we did before. So that's the idea. Push that all the way in. Once that's all the way through, like so, I always take the key out to try and lock the lock in position. Then you're going to be left with your circlip. Make sure it's straight. Sometimes these bend when you pull them out. It can make your lock feel really tight. Put that back on the top. If you're hard as nails, you can just slide them on. I'm not, so I'm going to be using my pliers. Sit them over the top. Squeeze that circlip on. And then once it's in position, just give it a little tighten up. These aren't really the pliers for the job. As I say, all my tools are elsewhere at the moment. So there you go, circle it back on, and then we're back to a working lock. So following that technique, which is only a basic one for newbies, you can reduce as many pins as you want, but always remember to replace these top ones, remove the top ones as well. When you're building your lock back up to 5 pins as your picking improves, gradually add them one at a time. When you take them out, keep them safe in a bag so you know it goes with the lock. Always use something like this because it went smoothly there, but numerous times those pins have shot out around the room and it's a nightmare if you lose a couple of pins from your lock. So always get something like this and keep your arms over it. A lot of people tend to draw their arms away from the box because it's more comfortable, and then it just sounds like Al Capone's done a drive-by as you hear all the pins shooting around the room. So there you go, basic repinning for a newbie.